I found it very difficult in this day and age that we actually had to make as many calls as we did. And Frank, you can chime in. I guess this is what you deal with Dial Ride on a daily basis. And this is some of the rallying cry that you're talking about, that there should be basic transportation for people in Northwest Indiana. There just should be.
Correct. And so this is one instance where someone is bound to a wheelchair who has the inability to access to be able to go to a funeral for a loved one. And it's something that I talk about all the time. Even with Dial-A-Ride, because of the demand, very often we have to deny people because of our capacity. We use AAA as an overflow, and believe it or not, even AAA and their wide-ranging fleet fills up also. So what we have to do, there is a South Lake that I think Lisa called, but they're 5 to 7 days. And in that particular instance, there's not a trustee or a public official to call and say, hey, I really need this. Regardless of who you are, it doesn't matter. I get calls from everyone you could possibly imagine, and it's tough to you really can't prioritize. You just have to try and get people in the capacity that they can. And so there is our community, as you were just talking about prioritizing things, our community has to put the stigma of public transportation and really understand that there is a market of individuals who do not have the capacity to get around until those people who scream from the mountaintops about the bus going by, the giant buses, which those days are gone, until they need a ride,
Sure.
or until a family member needs a ride, then it will become important.
But see, you see this every day because it's your job. I see this every day because I deal with seniors every day. And
I saw it before this was my job. What I saw, which will never leave my mind, is when I was a pharmaceutical sales rep, I would see older patients sitting in doctor's offices for hours waiting for loved ones or taxi services to come pick them up. They would spend 7 hours at a doctor's office because they were dropped off and had to wait either till someone got off work or the first available taxi to take them back. Just sitting there for hours. I would take
And that's their
people,
reality.
And that's a reality for senior citizens who don't have the accessibility to be able to move freely in our community.
And then don't get me started with the veterans, because
Correct.
they only do a certain amount of things here in Crown Point, and it burns my backside. And then you have to send everyone over to Hines instead of scheduling all the people that need the same thing on one day a month and bringing – wouldn't it be easier to bring a doctor in?
Correct.
Or have mass transportation?
Correct. And we're trying to work with the VA to figure something out, but it's the crossing of state lines.
So, but listen to me. Let me vent for a second.
Sure.
I hear all these people talking about it's always when there's a baseball game and there's a veteran, everyone's standing up and screaming and howling. That's one thing. Or when we have our motorcycle rides to make awareness of it, that's great. But the minutia of it is the daily operation of making sure that these people have what they need. And that means capital.
There was even something that Congressman Visklowski was working on where I sat through meeting after meeting where literally they're a half mile short to be able to charge Medicaid or Medicare for transportation from Crown Point to the VA to Hines. It was like a half mile where he was trying to go to nautical miles.
Sure.
To be able to have it fall under the guidelines. A simple change in a law or a government guideline would provide funding for rides for veterans to get from Crown Point to Chicago.
And that's where I get upset, and you deal with the red tape all the time. Common sense should be common sense. And sometimes it's not. This is a paid program. North Township trustee Frank Mervan. It's spilled over from the earlier program because of real life situation. And I'm sure that if it's happening in my real life, that it's happening in other people's real life. And ultimately, all the things that we're talking about this morning, and this is what we're getting to, the number of issues that you could sit here and say, I need this, and everyone's like, well, I don't. That's the reality of really what we have.
Right.
We have limited amounts of money to solve lots of problems.
So that's why you have, and I'm going to be big picture, that's why you have a direct democracy where elected officials prioritize where they put their tax dollars based on their assessment of the needs. And if those assessment of the needs are towards the majority of what people want in their community, 51%, then they'll get reelected. If they don't, then if they don't prioritize the needs, then they won't get reelected. But the fact of the matter is you need strong leadership to be able to identify and make an assessment of what the needs are and be able to fulfill those needs based on the tax dollars that you have.
That puts it in a nutshell. Can we take a call? 845-1100 on the Carpenter's Local 599 phone line. It is 8 o'clock on the dot. This is Dave Kuziak. I'm filling in for Jed in the region. This is a paid program. North Township trustee Frank Mervan comes in weekly to talk about what's going on in the township, and just so happened to walk in on what happens in the township on a daily basis, the need for transportation. Coming to you live from the Strachan Van Til Food Market Studios. Bill is calling in this morning. Bill, good morning.
Good morning. You know, as we always say, warrior pride is everywhere.
That's correct.
But it will never be, or it will never achieve the same heights as governor pride at Morton High School. Wouldn't you say, Frank?
Yes.
That pride's a wonderful thing.
He's got both.
And
Frank's
you
got
know
a little
too.
bit of Frank's got a little bit of warrior pride, but
as I told my two boys and the entire Bishop Knoll football team, you know, you remember, of course, my sons played linebacker side by side at Bishop Knoll.
yes,
Sean was number 41, so we nicknamed the Warrior defense the Bishop Knoll Warrior defense. Route 41 is closed.
there you go.
They wore T-shirts under their shoulder pads. And you know what else we told them? Because we had a good ethnic mix, I told them you can't have pride in your heritage until you have admiration and respect for the heritage of others. Pretty good one, don't you think?
I think that we would all be better off if we do a little bit of that.
Well, I didn't make that up. My mother did.
I think that I just go
there
by.
were some other people that tried to take credit
yeah.
for my ideas,
Yeah.
but you know that never happens in Hammond.
Yeah. Hey, thanks a lot, Bill.
Okay.
The as I say, Frank, along those lines, as we're in this hyper love Trump, hate Trump, love Hillary, hate Hillary life that we're in, that the golden rule, kind of treat people as others as you want to be treated, kind of goes a long way.
It is. It's as Tony Robbins would say, it's a standard. You have that standard for yourself or your family, or you don't, and you live it by example. So,
Frank, what is going on with? Let's take one more call, and then I want to get an update. There's always announcements that need to be made, and then also what's going on in the township, and then we'll talk about anything that's going on down at the legislature. As it appears that there's taxing going on down at the legislature, which
or
is
user fees, however
or
you
user
want to look
fees. I like to call them alternative facts. Good morning. You're live on WJOB.
Good. Can you be able to set up an account with like Uber? Uber is so big nowadays that they could probably fulfill some of your transportation needs and have a central account with them. I'm sure they're willing to do things with you.
You absolutely can. It's just dependent upon first of all, I don't know the infrastructure of Uber in Lake County, but I know it exists. But the instance that we're talking about is someone who is bound to a wheelchair.
Yeah, you need a lift.
And you need a lift.
Believe me, Uber's got all that.
Really?
Yeah, I've seen. Oh yeah.
I haven't seen Uber with
so
wheelchair lifts yet.
I've seen them. I was just in Nashville, and I've seen them with wheelchair lifts. They've got they can go up to 25 people I've seen with Uber. It just depends. You got to reach out to them.
I will absolutely, if that's the fact, I will reach out to Uber in Lake County, Indiana, to see if that exists for wheelchair accessible mobile vehicles to move people around.
Okay,
you're right. The private sector absolutely can do it better, faster, more efficient. But you know what they can't do for a consistent basis, day in and day out, is move people who do not have the either the means for a vehicle, or are handicapped in some way that can't get to an event. Usually, that community is not dependent upon Uber. They're dependent on public transportation, because public transportation, and I'll beat everyone to the punch, if you gave 1 million rides in public transportation, it would not be a profit center. You'd be lucky to break even. So
no, but those are one of the things that I say as a tax-paying citizen. is something that I'm willing to do for the betterment of the good, understanding that we all take care of each other. That's tangible.
Correct.
You see that.
Any thriving community has a local public transportation system going on. Velpo, they're getting awards like they were like they cured the worst disease in the world because they have a public transportation system.
And we got rid of all of ours.
Correct.
Keep
So
up good work,
they're
Frank.
Although,
thriving.
Frank, you're in charge of all those now, aren't you? You and Gary?
It breaks down into 4 are basically the sole survivors. East Chicago, GPTC, who has regional routes that we're working to bring awareness to. And what I mean by regional routes is they come through Munster, they come through Hammond, they come through East Chicago, and then East Chicago has their own transportation system. And what we're trying to do to be able to put together one system that could be best utilized. And it's one of my responsibilities to do that, and it's not easy, and we're working on it on a daily basis. But there are 4 existing providers.
845-1100. You have Frank Mervan, who is the North Township trustee, talking about transportation from the previous program, but it's obviously something that they handle on a daily basis with Dial-A-Ride. And I can only concur with you, Frank, as I'm back. I'm self-employed, and I've had a different number of jobs in the organization that I have, and I'm back into direct sales. And just since I've been back in the end of last year and the beginning of this year, I can't, and I was out, I did a little bit here and there, but I got to tell you that when you sit in someone's house, and I've called you on several occasions, people that have buckets laying in their house, they have no wherewithal to fix their roof.
Right.
And you're trying the best you can to do what you can. Believe me when I tell you.
Sure.
If I helped everyone that was there, I'd be out of business.
Right.
You try to do what you can when you can do it, and try to work with people here and there. And I've called Frank several times on people that should not be living in conditions like that.
And we've called you for people who needs roof that have to extend it over long periods of time, and
but
obviously you're not looking for that, but it's...
The point is that there's so much, people that sometimes I just want people to understand this, because I have friends from all walks of life, and to think that just because you don't see that or deal with it on a daily basis, maybe because you live in, St. John or Cherville, or it doesn't matter where you live, you don't see it, doesn't mean that it doesn't exist.
Correct.
And I really, you need to walk in other people's paths, and there's a lot of different ways why people got in the situations that they're in.
Sure.
But the bottom line is that they exist, and
Correct.
It needs to be dealt with, and that's why we've decided to have a township and deal with that. With it, I know you always have some announcements if there's some that you need to get to.
We do have some events coming up that are worth your while. The North Township Financial Institution Career Fair is coming up, and that will be at the Social Center. If you have any questions, you can call Cindy at 803-0659. Also, we have our Family Sweetheart Dance, which is Saturday, February 11th at the Wicker Park Clubhouse. Children ages 4 through 12 are accompanied by an adult. It would be $5 per couple and $3 for each additional child. You can call Kelly at 932-2530, extension 331. And then we have our Chicago Wolves bus trip, which is a very good time. The Chicago Wolves versus the Rockford Ice Hogs. Saturday, February 4th, the bus leaves from Wicker Park Clubhouse at 5 p.m. It's $35 per person, and you can call Kelly at 932-2530, extension 331. And I always want to thank our sponsor, Christensen Chevrolet, who's been involved with the township for a very long time. I was just looking through a rededication pamphlet that we had from 1993 that would have been 75 years from when the president came to dedicate the park, and Christian Chevrolet had an ad that said, "It's never too late to thank a vet."
I did a little bit of work on a building in Griffith, and the gentleman that owns the building said that was a Christensen Chevrolet when it was first opened, and that's the corner of a lot of people. I'm assuming that he knows what he's talking about.
Broad.
It was the corner of Broad and Main.
Correct.
And there's like 3 or 4 businesses in it now. But just because you brought that up, I mean, it's one of those things I never would have thought. But
I think they've been here over 100 years.
Yeah.
Their business.
They're doing quite well and thriving.
41 and 45th.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind having that piece of property. But
So our township big announcement that I want to talk to you about, that I want to make sure that I get in every day, is we're working on, in September of 2015, an editorial came out, and this is a something that's dark and gloomy, but we're trying to shed light on it. Came out with a study. The Hammond Times came out with an editorial that showed Indiana University did a study where the number of sexual assaults towards children or exploitation or molestations in Lake and Porter County, we were actually number 1 in the state of Indiana and number 26 or 27 in the United States. And so what we're doing at the North Township Trustee's office is, my father has a bill. We're working with Aaron Marin, who is a nationwide advocate for education to children and caregivers about that situation, about good touching, bad touching, don't touch anywhere where a bathing suit is, and also giving kids a pathway, the knowledge and a pathway of who to talk to, because more than likely the predator is someone that they know. It's someone in a house, and the statistics show it's about 1 in 10. So my father has a bill, which is Aaron's Law, that gives it more teeth, which will be heard on February 2nd in the state legislature. And what that does is give the Department of Education a curriculum, and also trains all the teachers and guidance counselors in the school to be able to educate the kids. And on top of that, we're going into the school with an advocacy group with a mental health advocate. David Kapp, the U.S. District Attorney, has committed to that. Myself, and then a survivor. And then the Northwest Indiana Times is going to be having, up until March 18th, which is National Awareness Day for Sexual Child Exploitation Day, where we're having an event at Purdue Cal from 11 to 3 with Aaron Marin will be the guest speaker. We'll have something on human trafficking. Regional Mental Health is a co-sponsor. And then after the event, what we're doing is we have a hotline that will go into place, and we're working with Child Abuse Prevention Indiana, where they will train school facilitators to be able to shed light on this situation. And the whole story is that it is a devastating thing that happens to kids, and it affects families for generations after it happens. And statistics show that bad things start happening the longer the abuse goes on. And so we're just trying to shed light on it and give kids a pathway. And that all starts with the bill that we have going forward on February 2nd that will allow schools to be educated, and teachers and individuals who deal with kids to be trained on how to identify behavior patterns about kids that might be suffering from that.
very eye-opening. I know as my kids were younger, good rule of thumb, keep your hands to yourself.
Correct.
Things work out very much better. They work out much better when
And
that
again,
rule is kept.
For parents, one of the things that I learned going through one of these courses were how the sick individuals who are the predators on children, they actually groom kids. They actually will tickle them, or want to try and isolate a child by themselves, or take them to a movie and different things. So as a parent, you want to be able to identify when someone is crossing the line, and you have to say no more family time, because very often it will shock you who and what and where. And
Unfortunately, sometimes you look back and say that people may have missed some cues or
correct.
some things like that. 845-1100 if you'd like to chime in. Frank Mervan, this is a paid program, North Township Trustee. Frank has come in, talk about a number of issues, as always, that affects you and yours, and started out talking about transportation because of a everyday real-life situation, and then talked about some of the things going on, some awareness that is a big event that's going to be coming through. If you'd like to chime in, 845-1100. We have Dave on the line. I guess it's Dave Thursday. So there's been a lot of Daves this morning.
Great show. Thanks for your service. And, you interrupt your show and you talk about some things that people don't want to talk about, and it's easier not to. And thanks for all your help and your service. I used to golf at Wicker Park in the day. I was a paper boy. I golfed every day. And my dad got mad, so he walked me over to Jansen's, and then I used to work 40 hours a week while I was going to Bishop Knoll. But I really appreciate what you've done to the golf course. And I went there before the coat drive, which I think is amazing that you do, Dave. and you handed it off over to him. And I dropped off 4 or 5 coats that I dry cleaned. And, it's really like, I used to like to get stuff. It really does feel better giving things back. And I had a couple extra coats, and that just made me feel better. I went to the golf, those guys. I think it's the same guys that were in that golf room that were there when I was delivering the papers.
Some of them.
And it was about 20 degrees,
Yeah.
and it was just really nice. And just make sure to put a sign up there like you do for the yoga, drop coats off here. And then I went to a high school with one of those guys, and it's just really nice. It's nice to see, because it's easy to talk about the negatives. And, the Kardashians, thank God, don't live in Brentwood, And Frankie lived down the street from my mom. And I live in Munster because my mom lives up here. If she didn't live here, I wouldn't be here. Hey, God bless, and just keep up the good work, okay?
Thank you, Dave.
It's nice to get those calls, and I just got to tell one quick story that I have taken from the coat drive. 2 things. The first year we did it, the line, I looked, and there was a guy that was looking at me and kind of caught my eye and kind of looked the other way, and it was a classmate of mine.
Right.
And I immediately went and grabbed him and his kids and made sure that they had a jacket. So, and I've been in that situation before, so times can be good, times can be bad. And don't be ashamed if you need help. And then it wasn't last year as we handed off the coat drive to the township. It was the year before, and special thanks to, I think is it Kathy Giannini over at Ridge United?
Yes.
They do a great job of gathering jackets and some very nice ones, full-length jackets, and we put those up, and some of the older ladies that came in, and one lady came up to me, and she was as proud as could be, and she looked at me, and she said, "Mr. Kuziak, don't I look good with that jacket?" And I said, "You absolutely do." And, again, taking for granted that you can open up a closet and have 5 jackets or a full-length jacket if the weather calls for it. And it just is, to me, those are simple things to do, and I look at it like this. Need, solve it, take it off the list, let's get to the next one. And as far as the park goes, to the number of people that use that, and we've been walking it a bunch, and it's just unbelievable. That's what you call community. Or people jogging, people biking, kids running around, people having picnics, organizations having splash pads,
driving range,
all that
tennis
going
courts.
on, all that going on. And I got to tell you, I'm sure that there's, from time to time, people getting a pickle. People just enjoying themselves and staying out of each other's way and just enjoying the day.
It's a very simplistic rule that I think that adds to the quality of life in our area, that you just provide a product that is clean and safe, and you make progressive changes every year to make a little difference and to make it more exciting. And I think that that mission and that standard of making sure that it's clean and safe for everyone is what makes that a gem of the region.
Frank, anything else going on in the region? I know we have Region 219 Day. That's February 18th. That's sponsored by the city of Hammond.
Correct.
And
they have some very good entertainment this year.
Yeah, we're going to do a True Region Day. As I'll just be honest with you, I set up the Bishop Noel Bowling event.
Yes.
And I looked at the date and it said 2/18, and I really didn't think about 219 Day.
Sure.
And unfortunately, I put down a deposit, and it's done. So we're doing it on the same day. But we're really doing a region day because we're going to go bowl in the region, and then we're going to 219 Day. So
right.
Here would be
can't get more region than that.
So here's my suggestion to Mayor Tom. They're always looking for new ways to show what Region 219 Day is. Set up a mock bowling lane.
There you go.
You know what I mean? Where people would actually bowl, and you couldn't get any more region than that. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go bowl first, raise some money for Bishop Noel Blue and Gold, and then a bunch of us are jumping in the car probably around 9:30 and go
heading over
and head over to the Civic Center. So that's a great event. And anything else that's going on that we want to
the only because it's been off the radar for a while, I just want to make sure that everyone understands that the lead crisis in East Chicago is still going on. And this weekend, surprisingly, everything that's going on with the EPA, we have a conference call today about all the stakeholders with the EPA and HUD But this Saturday, June 28th, from 11 to 3 p.m. at the Old Carrigosh School, there will be a multi-agency open house. So anyone in the East Chicago area that has questions from any of the agencies that are handling that, especially the East Chicago Health Department, I believe that they'll be doing lead draws or blood draws for lead. I have been an advocate that every child in the city of East Chicago should be tested.
And you can get that lead out of your system.
That is correct. It's reversible.
I talked to Dr. Dave Freud about that.
That is correct.
And he gave me his medical viewpoint is that there is.
It's non-binding.
First of all,
right.
You need to find out that you have it and be diagnosed. And secondly, get on a plan to get that out of your system.
Right. So the slogan that we have said is be smart, get tested. And so any adult or child can be tested at the health department. They have ours, the East Chicago Health Department. Please give them a call. But there's also this multi-agency open house Saturday, January 28th from 11 to 3 p.m. in East Chicago at the Old Carrigosh School. If you have any questions, please give them a call, or you can call my office at 932-2530, extension 324.
Legislative sessions in gear. I talked about 5 things going on. Anything in the township, or do you not get involved with anything that's not township? Just stay out of people's ways?
No, I'm on the legislative committee for the township. There are 900, and there used to be 1,003. I think there are 996 townships now. There are bills that are affecting them. There's a representative from Indianapolis who has a bill to eliminate the boards and give it either the cities or the counties. There's always been a law that exists that allows us to consolidate on our own. So for example, if Calumet, ourselves, St. John, and Ross Township wanted to become one giant township, we would be able to do that through a referendum and through other legislation tool that exists. There's tweaking of that. There's a lot of volunteer fire department legislation because the majority of the townships are in charge of volunteer firemen.
A lot of people don't know that.
So the radar with townships obviously is to see what happens with the boards. I'm going down to Indianapolis next Tuesday and Wednesday for a couple bills that are important to me. One project I'm working on, and then for Aaron's bill that we're working on with my father. And I'll get a better feel for what's going on. Unfortunately, you can't serve 10 different masters, so I'm relying upon the township legislative liaison to give me that information.
The anything else, 845-1100, anything else for Frank as we kind of wind down here in the next couple minutes? Any word on Griffith and where they're at as far as what township, and is there a possibility that they join our beautiful North Township?
There's always a possibility that anything can happen. Currently, it's in the courts. As I talked about, I think last year, I know I was at the Highland Griffith Chamber. I talked about it that ultimately there is a discretion between what the DGLF, which is the Department of Government Finance, and I don't want to dive into the woods about it, but basically they told Calumet Township that their numbers were legitimate, and then the Attorney General told Griffith that the numbers were illegitimate. So when I saw that, I said, that's going to court. And so that decision won't be made until the end of 2008.
I think it's now,
right.
But I think that when you're talking to people,
there was someone who took money from the town or from the school or from somewhere. Are they pulling the school system out?
I'll be honest with you. I'm sure that there's people that took money from the Munster or from the Griffith girls softball, from the Griffith boys baseball, from the Griffith girls soccer, from the every single organization that's ever been put together has someone's hand in the teal.
If we use that parallel logic, have they shut those down? Have they gone? Did they move the Griffith Little League to St. John or to Munster or Highland? No, they kept it, and they improved upon it, and they put checks and balances in place so it wouldn't happen again.
Touche. That's pretty good. That's a good
one. I am not. That is not my battle. My only point with that whole issue is, whatever happens, let's get it done, and let's stop making Calumet Township ground zero of why we need to get rid of townships.
That's
that has
fair.
been 12 years of that battle, and I have sat down with the Griffith City Council. I have sat down with the past trustee. I have negotiated. I had tried to find solutions, and everyone was more comfortable in digging into their position because it was to their benefit.
Well, of
instead
course.
of finding a solution.
let's
I'm only advocating that
your time is up.
Right.
It's
Find the best
8:26. Let's
solution.
talk about
Right.
this in a political situation.
Right.
The people of Griffith get reelected by saying they want out of the township. The people of Gary get elected by saying they want them to stay in.
I think it's more advantageous for Gary, and it's less of an issue for Gary. The only issue is the ability to finance the township. But I think she's figuring out ways
Rick
to do that.
Rifa is a very popular elected official in Griffith, and if
Because
you
of that
if you
issue.
had to pick one issue why, you would say, and you talk to Griffith residents,
99% of the people
he may get us out.
that I talk to from Griffith, that's the only issue they talk about.
Sure.
And I respect that.
And the difference is this. Just like I drive sometimes from Munster into Highland, I don't know where I'm at. You don't know where the line's at. Same thing in Highland. You drive from Highland into Griffith, you don't know where the line is. But here what the tax line is. When you're in Griffith, you're in Calumet Township, and you pay that tax. Now, of course, I don't want to bore people with the tax caps and all that stuff. You're only paying your percent anyway. It's just a matter of where it's going. Who gets it?
No one knows that, Dave.
See, I say that all the time.
That's the smartest.
People
Yes.
think their tax bill is going to go down. It's not going to go down. The distribution of the money is just going to be distributed differently.
That is a brilliant observation because I talk about the same point. To make it perfectly clear, it is a redistribution. So the town of Griffith and the library and Lake County will be able to take a little bit more a piece of the pie, and Calumet Township will no longer do that. And it isn't the whole pie. If they're paying $1 million now, they're still whatever township they're going to join, they're going to have to pay $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 to be able to be part of that for those services. And then there's an excess of $500,000 that the town of Griffith would be able to use for infrastructure, for roads. So it's not a reduction of property taxes because you're already capped at 2% if you're a homeowner.
But they'd rather see that go into their Griffith roads.
Absolutely.
Than into...
But you want to dispel the myth of that my taxes are too high, they're going to go down, because that's not a fact. And Griffith is in a great position to get out. And the Attorney General gave him an opinion that this is what it is. And usually the courts follow suit. So it'll be a legal battle. And when that happens, North Township will listen to what they have to say.
So let me let me finish this up. If this happens, which I think it's going to now, although I still think I won the bet, just if Matt's listening, if they get out, what's the process of which one they would get into? Is it up to them to go court someone, or is it for some township to go court them?
Their town council basically has to put a business plan together and spend money to figure out how much it would cost for them to go into that township, present that to the township board of an adjacent township, which is St. John, Ross, or North. And so those three townships...
Can they kind of pick which ones they want?
Yep, they would pick which one they would go to.
I think it's going to be North.
Wherever they go, then those board members would vote yay or nay, 3 board members, if they wanted to accept them based on the exposure that it would be to the township and the expectation of the services of the community.
On that note, it is right at 8:30, so we're out of here. Stick around for the City of Whiting show.